The new Fragment Fusion event has launched for Stokk the Broken. In today's video, we're going to do two videos in one. In the first half, I'm going to give you my champion review of Stokk the Broken to help you decide whether or not he is worth pursuing in this fusion event. And then in the second half of the video, I'm going to give you my patented no-fail fusion plan so that those of you who do decide to pursue Stokk have the best chance of success. I am Colred. This is Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. Let's get started. Just a quick reminder, tomorrow is Takeover Tuesday here at Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. I go live at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. You should definitely come check it out if you want your chance to win a free account takeover, or if you just enjoy watching takeover content. In addition, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, consider joining our Discord community. Thanks so much. Now let's get back to the video. Here he is, Stokk the Broken, a Spirit Affinity support champion from the Ogryn Tribes faction. As you can see, Stokk is in stocks, like that's the thing around his neck, so I see what you did there, player. Now let's start by reviewing his stat pools as we always do. So HP of about 20k, not bad. Attack, about average. Defense, about average. Speed, about average. Even the resistance and accuracy, we do have a little bit of accuracy, which is nice to start with anything above 0 when you have a debuffer like Stokk here. But in general, his stats are very average. No glaring weaknesses, no particular strengths. That should lend itself to a variety of builds. So at least he's going to have some flexibility in terms of gear sets. But let's go ahead and take a look at his kit now, starting with the A1. Doom Flasks attacks one enemy 2 times. Each hit when booked has a 50% chance of increasing the duration of all poisons and all HP burns by 1 turn. Now, I think debuff extension is actually becoming much more and more valuable as time goes on and we get more activators into the game. Because the thing about poison activators and HP burn activators is when they activate the debuff loses a stack of duration. And so those activators lose value when those debuffs fall off. So we want ways, we want champions, we want skills that can extend the duration of those debuffs in order to keep them up there for the activators to then use. So I actually think this is a great A1. Remember that it will gain value with ally attack and with counterattacks. So yeah, a really solid A1 that I like to see become a little bit more common in the game. Now, here we have an A2. This is a little bit of a bonker skill. It does a lot of things. So first of all, it's an AoE attack. It hits 2 times. The first hit instantly activates all poisons and HP burns. So we're just talking about activation. That's why that synergy with the A1 is so important. But in addition, this also activates all continuous heal buffs on all allies. So giving you a bit of sustain there, which is really nice. The second hit has a 100% chance when booked of destroying each target's max HP for each poison and HP burn that has been activated. So that's pretty cool. Also destroys some max HP. We're going to see some synergy there with his passive later on. This skill also fills the turn meter of all allies by 20%. So you're getting 6 effects here, right? You're getting an AoE attack that hits twice, a poison activation, an HP burn activation, continuous heal activation, a max HP destruction, and then a turn meter fill. That's 6. It should have been like that, but we'll call it 6. So 6 effects on this skill. None of them are maybe overwhelmingly powerful on their own, but this certainly feels like a very strong A2. And again, it synergizes well with that A1. So far, I'm liking Stokk's kit. Let's take a look at the A3. This also books down to a 3-turn cooldown. Another AoE attack that has a 100% chance when booked of placing 2 poison debuffs on all enemies for 2 turns. However, if any targets are under an HP burn debuff, it places 3 poisons instead and a large version of weaken on them. So Stokk doesn't bring HP burns, but he can activate them, he can extend them, and he also is empowered by them. So this is kind of maybe like a little bit of a support version of Rathalos, right? Rathalos gets more damage when there are HP burns out there based on sort of a passive. And Stokk here gets an extra effect where he gets out more poisons and this weaken. He also places continuous heals, so again, synergy with that A2. So 2 AoE attacks, I don't expect him to hit very hard, but this certainly makes him a candidate for something like a stun set or a provoke set, or maybe a cursed set if you're trying to get that hex out there as well. So It's always nice to have 2 AoEs, and good synergy so far with the kit. Now let's look at the passive. The damage inflicted by poison and HP burn debuffs will ignore block damage and unkillable buffs. That's pretty cool in places like Arena and Siege. It's going to give you a little bit of extra value out of those debuffs that aren't always typically PvP focused. So I do think he may have some niche use in PvP locations. And then whenever allies attack enemies with destroyed max HP, it increases the damage dealt by 10%. So this max HP isn't just going to be useful in places like Scarab King, where you actually want the destroy HP mechanic, but you're also going to get this buff of 10% on anybody who has destroyed max HP. So a little bit of a damage ramp as well as all of the other stuff that he's bringing. And then finally, an ally speed in all battles aura of 20%, which is 1% better than that standard 19 we see so often. So what do I think about Stokk? Well, his stats are average, but his kit is going to be very versatile. It's going to be very strong in a lot of places. There's a lot of great synergy here. I'm imagining team-ups with other HP burners and poisoners, maybe even a champion like Bad Alcazar, who also brings continuous heals. That would be a crazy duo, Stokk and Bad Alcazar together. But I think if you are in the mid game and you are struggling, or even if you're entering end game here and you're struggling with getting through wave content quickly, poison activation and HP burn activation is one way to speed up wave clearing. So this guy's going to be good against bosses. He's going to be good in terms of waves. He adds a little bit of survivability to your team. He makes everybody hit a little bit harder. There's really no downside to this champion. Now, when you compare him to the other fusions that we've had over the last year or two, where does he stack up? Is he S tier? Is he God tier? Is he kind of A or B or C tier? I actually think this is a very strong, maybe A tier champion that could be S tier for free-to-play players who are in the mid to kind of late mid game. This guy's really going to speed up things for your account, and he's going to synergize well with other champions that you have. So I would not say he's a must-get fusion, but I do think that the value here is fairly high, especially, like I said, if you're kind of trying to speed up some of those endgame wave-based areas that you may be struggling with. So yeah, a really good champion. I'm going to be pursuing Stokk. I've taken the last 2 fusions off anyway, so I'm raring to go on this fusion, but I also think he is going to add something to my account, even though I'm at endgame with my free-to-play account. So there you have it. That is my champion review for Stokk the Broken. Let me know in the comments below if you're going to be pursuing him. And if you are, well, stick around because now we're going to do our no-fail fusion plan. Here is the fragment event calendar for Stokk the Broken. It was just released today. So today is Monday, November 25th. I don't know when you'll be seeing this video. You might not see it until Tuesday. But there are 130 total fragments here, but 10 come from the Champion Training Tournament, and 10 come from the Champion Chase Tournament. So what we're really planning on is 110 available fragments, of which we need 100. So we can skip 10 fragments. That's good to know. I always try to note that first. Some fragment fusions don't have any extra fragments. Some in the past have had even more. They've had 15 or 20 extra fragments. But this is sort of the standard that we see now. It's friendlier than it could be, but also not as friendly as it could be, because what this means is because of the 15 fragments in the Champion Chase Tournament and the 15 fragments in the Summon Rush down here at the bottom, you can no longer skip the Shard Pull events or tournaments. You have to do at least 5 fragments in each of these, and then you'll have to do the full 15 fragments in the other one. So there are 30 fragments out of shards. Right, 30 fragments available from shards, and you need to do at least 20 of those, right? Because we can only skip 10 of these. So we're going to have to do at least 20 out of the 30 shard-based fragment events and tournaments. Okay, so let's just put that out there so you know. Now let's run down the calendar. It's actually a fairly straightforward calendar. No real wrinkles here. The Fire Knight tournament started today, as did the Champion Training Tournament. Fire Knight is hard to do Champion Training and get that double dip because most people need a full 5 champions on their team to do Fire Knight. But if you can complete Fire Knight 20 with 3 or 4 champions, you can get some food champions in there, and that's going to allow you to do a little bit of champion training. But I would wait until the Dungeon Divers event starts. So you probably don't want to start today. You can just hold on to your energy, use it in campaign or somewhere else to get some silver. Don't burn through any pots or anything like that. Maintain your energy until you hit the Dungeon Divers event, and then you can get a triple dip here with the Fire Knight tournament, the Champion Training Tournament, and the Dungeon Divers event. The Spider Tournament will also overlap this Dungeon Divers, so as you can see right here. So if you put the 2K energy that you need into Fire Knight, and you put the 2K energy that you need into the Spider Tournament, that's going to require then 1,000 additional energy here for the Dungeon Divers event. It typically takes about 5,000 energy for a Dungeon Divers event. There's always going to be some variation just based on RNG, but you want to plan on that. I would probably put that extra energy into Spider and not Fire Knight, unless there happens to be like a 2 times artifact event that you are interested in Fire Knight. The reason I put the extra energy into Spider is because accessories generate more silver, so I usually lean in that direction. But if you need some good gear from the Fire Knight dungeon, then of course you could put the extra 1,000 energy in there. Just be aware that if you're doing that, you want to track your energy pretty closely so you don't overshoot, right? Because this Spider Tournament doesn't really fit into this next Dungeon Divers event. It looks like it might overlap like a little bit on the map, but typically they don't, or they, it's very little, and it'll be like 4 in the morning for you or something. So you can't really plan to put any Spider energy into this Dungeon Divers event 2. So get it all into Dungeon Divers event 1, and just, don't overspend early in the fusion, or else you might run out of energy later on. As far as the rest of it's concerned, the Classic Arena Takedown is generally the easiest of all the events. Just make sure that you are active in your arena, use all of your daily tokens, and you should be just fine. Artifact enhancement events typically take around 20 million silver each. So if you have a little bit of silver now, that's generally good. But between the Fire Knight tournament and the Spider tournament that you're doing, you should be generating a lot of silver for this first artifact enhancement event. Now, the first big decision we have to make here is going to be this Champion Chase tournament on Friday. This should be during a 2 times Ancient Shard event. So if you have Ancient Shards, you should be able to pursue this Champion Chase tournament. I would probably recommend that since this is during a 2 times event, you go for the full 15 fragments here. There's another reason to do that, and that's because it's the earlier of the 2 events, and you tend to want to not skip fragments until you get towards the end. It's better to skip later fragments rather than earlier fragments. And the reason is you might mess up somewhere. If you mess up, let's say on this Dungeon Divers event 2, and you don't get those 5 fragments, and you've already, let's say, skipped this tournament, this tournament ends here, and then you mess up this Dungeon Divers event in the last day, well, now you can't go back and get the Champion Chase tournament fragments. They're gone. They're out of rotation. And that may be enough to make you fail here on like day 7 or 8, and then you're done, and that's it, and you can't really pursue it anymore. However, if you pick up the Champion Chase tournament fragments, all 15 of them, and then you miss the Dungeon Divers event, you can always say to yourself, well, I have 15 fragments in the Summon Rush I can go after, and that could potentially make up the difference. So that's just something to consider. If you're really tight on shards, that might not even work for you, but I would still recommend going for the 15 here just because of the 2 times Ancient, and also because you can use fragment champions like you have maybe in your portal that you've stored, or permanent fusions, or anything like that, even Doom Tower champions that you might get to give yourself some more Champion Chase points. So keep that in mind. The Ice Golem tournament should go into the Dungeon Divers here. That's going to be the 2K for this. That means this Dungeon Divers is going to take an additional 3K energy. That's a lot. And it's during an Ice Golem tournament, so it's not even worth probably doing more Ice Golem. Again, I would probably put that 3K energy into Spider, just because it's better silver. Artifact enhancement event number 2. Again, that's another 20 million silver. Remember that you don't need all of this silver when you start the the event because it's a 15-day event this time, I believe. But you probably want to have somewhere in the vicinity of like 10 to 20 million silver right now. That would be a comfortable place. If you have less than that, consider extra sources of silver, forging gear and selling it, doing a big gear cleanse, or you can get silver sometimes from the clan shop, a couple other places from in the game where you can get silver. So maximize your silver generation if you don't have a little bit of a cushion right now. The champion training event is always a bit long, but the nice thing is that is during a dragon tournament. Dragon is the easiest dungeon to also do champion training event stuff. So if you have a solo dragon champion, that would be optimal. If you don't, consider making a duo or even a trio that can do dragon 20, and that's going to give you some extra champion training points. And as always, you can also use brews in the tavern. That's a fast way to complete champion training. Now, this is 15 fragments, so you can't really skip this. When we're thinking about the champion training tournament is only 5, so you really need to focus on this champion training event down here. Do not mess this one up. I would say try to complete as much of it like during the tournament that you can, but remember that these end at the same time. So if you have to do extra campaign or do whatever you have to do, you might need a little bit of extra energy here in addition to the 2K that you're putting into the tournament. If you don't have a ton of brews, you're going to need extra energy for campaign. Dungeon Divers event overlaps with that. So it could be the kind of thing where you're like, hey, since I need, an additional 3,000 energy for the Dungeon Divers anyway, drop it all into Dragon Tournament. Hopefully they have a 2x speed gear or something like that during this window, and that's going to give you Dragon, Dungeon Divers, Champion Training all at the same time. Again, Classic Arena Takedown is not a big problem if you're active on the board. The Artifact Enhancement event number 3, that's another 20 million silver. And then we end with the Summon Rush at the end. And again, this is going to give you an opportunity to maybe make up those 10 extra fragments if you need to right at the end. I don't think that's the worst way to do it. But this is typically 6 sacreds for the first batch of fragments. And then usually it's another 5 to 6 sacreds. I don't even know if you can read that. Sorry about that. That's pretty bad. So it's 6 sacreds for the first 5 fragments. And then it's going to be 5 to 6 additional sacreds for the next batch of fragments. So potentially you could need as many as 12 sacreds here. I usually use sacreds. I never use voids or primals here, but you could also use ancients if you have any extra ancients that you've picked up over the week. But again, this has to be all from shards, whereas the Champion Chase tournament can be from fragment champions as well. So just plan accordingly, knowing that you have to end on that summon rush. Okay, so all told, again, you can read the energy totals here. You're going to need a fair amount of energy. It's usually around 16,000 energy. I think with this one, it might be a little bit more because of this champion training event. So you might want to call it 17 or 18,000 energy all told. And again, 60 million silver. And potentially we're talking about, 70 or 80 ancient shards and maybe as many as 11 or 12 sacred shards if you make a mistake. If not, it's only going to be those 6 sacred shards. And, if you plan ahead, that's usually not too bad once you're clearing your Ultra Nightmare clan boss on the daily. All right, that is it. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions about the fusion plan, but this should set you up for success if you decide to pursue Stokk the Broken. And like I said, I think I'm going to go for him this time around. I've taken a couple of fusions off, and I'm raring to go, and I do think he's a good champion that's going to add some value to my roster. Okay, that is it for me today. Thanks so much for hanging out. I hope this helps you in your pursuit of raid success. I am Colred. I will see you in another video soon.